breaker 19, breaker 9. Hear me out. Meters. Hey, honey bunny. Oh, how's it going? Got any more blizzards over there? Oh, yeah, yeah. We got your package, honey bunny. Now my question is, what was that herb again, and how was it supposed to be used? I forgot. You know how my brain is like a steel colander nowadays. A little quiet, but okay. Drunk increase volume. No. Well, I'd love to, but unfortunately, this thing right here, I need to get out a drill. Okay, that's the problem with it. Is it's see how that's just wobbly there? You know. Hey Pat, how's it going? Uh, you must be up early over there. Uh, what time of day is it over there in the land down under Patrick? Okay, David says it sounds okay. Yeah, I think about it. Oh, well, as usual, nothing works simply. Hey, Asakura. Um, it's it hasn't been uploaded yet to the internet. I'm still working on got all the data shortly before we started here. But gentlemen down there in uh, Central America are oh dear.
Our condolences.
I'm sorry, Gold Digger. Um, so anyhow, the the guys in Central America are actually they've started their first batch of sulfides being processed today. Matter of fact, he called me up. We were going to see a movie, and just before the movie started, the phone rang, and that was him wanting to check on some questions before it started. And he went and got I think it's a 25 kilogram batch. Hi, Sarah. Um, Digested with the hydrogen peroxide. They were getting ready to load it in the ball mill. And then later today, they were going to get it out of the ball mill, put it into the cement mixer, add extra fluids, to bring it up to the 3-to-1 solid liquid ratio, and then add the Go Gold. So, really quickly, they're going to need to know how much resin and how long to roll it in order to get the gold out of the solution. Sounds like a simple question. Yeah. Um, Basically, hi, John. The testing I did a short time ago indicated that all the adsorption onto resin that the gold did occurred in the first 6 hours. And then for 2 days afterwards, it was flat line, and then it even had a little ski lift at the back end. So what I wanted to do was do something on a much tighter time frame. Instead of 6 hours as the smallest unit, it was 30 minutes. So what I did was I took 3 1-liter samples of solution that I have handy. Uh, that fits reasonably well into one of the bottles that I use. And I put 4 grams of max water resin in each one, knowing that that was an abundant amount of resin in order to absorb that gold. Okay, the amount of gold in the bottle would easily absorb onto that much resin. The idea being is I'm trying to test speed, not loading factor. Okay? So each one of these columns is 1 liter of solution at 11.6 parts per million. Okay? Fairly low concentration, lots of resin, should go quick. Now, I don't have the ability to get solution samples back quick, etc., without excessive price. So I thought, okay, what I will do is I will then take that resin and fire assay the resin, which is relatively simple for me to do. And so I took 1 sample, bottle rolled a batch of resin in it for 30 minutes, took the resin out, fire assayed it. Then I put another batch of resin in there, another 4 grams, ran it for 6 hours, took it out, fire assayed the resin, and put in another batch of 4 grams for another 6 hours. This one here I was not planning on doing. But the results up here were so bizarre, I felt I had to add that. Now, this sample, I ran the first batch of resin for 60 minutes and the next one for 120 minutes. Okay? And all of these numbers you see here are what I call milligram equivalents. Now, Chris Georgie, a while back, did a spreadsheet and printed up a chart to show me if you have a bead this big of pure gold and it's a sphere of this diameter, how much would it weigh? Now, there's 2 big variables here. Number one, they're never perfectly spherical, although the smaller they are, the better. The other one is how much gold is in it, because it's never pure gold. Okay? All of these here look silver colored. That means none of them are more than at most 50% gold. Okay? But if they were pure gold, see this one here is 0.060 inches, 60 thousandths of an inch, easily determined by my little microscope with the reticle in it. Okay? This was 0.065, this was 0.063, all of these were 0.060, and these were somewhere less. Okay? But anyhow, I had assumed that what I would probably see was this number here going up steadily as we have more contact time to some point where it would just stabilize, but no longer increase. And then these numbers down here would be much lower and relatively insignificant compared to the stuff above. Oh, that's so funny. Well, running it through electrolysis would be kind of tricky with these small quantities. That's why I just fire assayed the resin. I would have assumed that if we still had plenty of gold in solution, this would be almost twice this. Yeah, but then it drops here. Okay.
Got some.
Justin Bond. Hi, Justin. I'm doing okay. Annoyed as usual because the testing never goes simply. Okay? It would have been nice if, say, this was 36, this was 60, this was 60. These were like 8, 8, 8. That'd been perfect. It's like, okay, 60 minutes, I get maximum recovery. And so we'll go to 120 minutes, double it. Okay. No. Oh, go ahead and put it on the whiteboard.
Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. He will be right back. Give it a second here, people. Well, we don't do electrolysis on quantities this small because the quantity is too small. We electrolytically extract gold from resin all the time when we have a full load of resin and we have plenty of gold in it. But this is just a test.
Yep. Okay. We start out with this amount of solution here. Into that amount of solution, we put that much resin, 4 grams. Then we fire assay that resin, and we reduce it to a bead that small. That's 0.60. That's 60 thousandths of an inch across. Okay? That's one of these 3 here. As a matter of fact, it's this one right here. You'll notice there is a letter. Now, these things get really, really, really hot. So how do you get writing on it? Hard to see here. That will stay there. It's actually quite simple. You buy the special crayon and you just mark it with a crayon, and that will be there. Well, it'll last longer than the cupel will. It'll be full of lead oxide before that is done. By having a letter here, for example, I can tell this cupel here, and thus this bead, is the first one. It's that one right there. 1, 2, 3. This one here was A, B, C. These here are X, Y, Z. That way, when these things get all kind of moved around a little bit, it's really easy to figure out which is what. You can't label the bead, but you can sure label the cupel. And so, no, it's not charcoal. Charcoal is gone. I'm not sure what it is. It's a special crayon designed to mark this particular, it's a ceramic marking crayon. Okay. DFC Ceramics LLC. I presume it's got some kind of black ceramic in there. I don't know. Whatever it is, I can write on a cupel, a crucible, whatever, and this little rascal will leave a mark that will stay there. It's kind of interesting. At temperature, it's actually glowing a little bit. Okay? And that's because black not only absorbs heat better than white, but it also radiates heat better. Therefore, at temperature, it radiates better than the cupel or crucible or whatever behind it. It's a lot harder to see than when it's cold, though. But anyhow, this is a sample, and I need to remember to put that back there for the moment. In fact, swap this out. It's actually in the middle of rolling right now. Let's put it back. These were already taken. Anyhow, so these were the results. And it's like, what the hell? Because if the gold was going into the resin quickly, this should have dropped somewhere pretty dramatically. It didn't. Now, looking at the fire assays, this material, hi, Mr. Virtue, this material is abundant in silver, about 5 times the silver than the gold. Okay. So I thought, well, fire assay, we'll get either silver or gold. What if the gold is coming out quickly, but we still got plenty of silver, and it's not coming out nearly as quickly? So I took this bead here and this bead here and put them in separate beakers of nitric acid on the hot plate, dilute nitric, and tried to digest them. Now, if you have a bead, which I anticipated here from previous testing, that's around 50% gold, it's not going to dissolve in nitric. Okay? It just got way too much gold. Once you get to about a 4-to-1 ratio, it should dissolve readily in nitric acid. And in fact, this bead is still sitting there merrily in nitric acid, apparently untouched, whereas this dissolved in about 5 or 10 minutes, leaving a black residue, which is presumably finely divided gold. Okay? And so this is probably mainly silver in here. I'm going to have to take this bead here and test it also in nitric. But what appears to be going is most of the gold is coming out fairly quickly, but even down here, there's a significant amount of. So then we get to the question, well, how long do you want to make your thing work? Go ahead and go to me again. And so, like everything else in processing, it's a balancing act. Okay? It's not necessarily difficult to let that resin stay in there for up to 20, 24 hours. Depends on exactly what you're doing. Basically, adding it is like done, and recovering it is just pouring it through a screen. So that is fairly simple to do. The question is, how long do you want to let it absorb gold from the slurry? And that's what I'm trying to do here. Now, I'm sure we can get gold out of the slurry, no problem. Okay. Right now, they're more worried about just getting some money coming in, for, another source of money coming in, than being super efficient. But my job is to try and figure out how to make this most efficient. How can we do it? For example, if we were to take the slurry and let it settle for a couple of hours, like you just turn off the cement mixer and let it sit for a little bit, and then pour the fairly clear liquid off the top, you could go ahead and run that through a resin column or something like that fairly easily. And then maybe a resin and pulp for the rest of the mud, so to speak. Oh no, we're not selling any silver right now, John. We figure it's going to keep going up for a while. Anyhow, one of the advantages, if in resin and pulp, let's say this was your mud, you got 1 part solid, 3 parts of Eco Gold X solution. This right here rolls. If this was a cement mixture, it would roll this way. Okay. If you put resin directly in there, it will absorb gold out of it, but it's going to do it very evenly. Okay. It's all going to absorb resin at the same speed. If you have what's known as if you put it in solution like this, or if you just had what they call a fluidized bed column, where the resin mixes around, it'll also load very evenly. However, there's something called a packed bed column, which is what we use around here for our. This is one of our resin cartridges. All it is a water filter cartridge that is specifically designed to be loaded with whatever you want to put in it. Now what happens here is that the solution comes in here, since the resin is not free to move. This resin right here gets the strongest solution going through it. Then up here it's less strong, here it's less strong, and like that. Therefore, this resin will load pretty darn high. And by using a series of columns, once this loading gets up to here, then you'll see the gold coming from the output increase dramatically. So with a packed resin cartridge, you should be able to get higher loading factors, and a higher loading factor. Hey, Wage. Hey, Patrick. Hi, Desert. The advantage of this is you load it to a higher level. You get more efficient use of your resin. Wouldn't be a big problem if we had a good stripping and regenerating system, but we don't yet for the resin. There should be one. We just haven't been able to figure it out. Resin and pulp, on the other hand, it's just not going to get that high a loading factor. There's equilibrium reactions. If you have, say, 100 parts per million, you're only going to be able to load so many parts per million in the resin. As the solution level comes down, High Desert, as it comes down, there will be an equilibrium that happens, and therefore you will stop absorbing out of it. With a packed bed column, you don't have nearly that much. Okay? So this is the sort of thing where I'm trying to figure out what the best way is. And there may be separate batches. You take batch 1 of resin, run it for an hour, dump it out, screen it out, put the slurry back in the cement mixer, throw another batch of resin in it. Okay? This particular resin we're using operates in the solution at a pH of about 11 or 12. Okay? That's where it's absorbing gold. To strip it, we put it in a thiourea solution at a pH of 1 and a temperature of about 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 degrees centigrade. For all you people on the other side of the planet. But anyhow, so it's one of those things that I'm trying to figure out how to keep from losing gold. Okay, throwing it away. The solution any solution we recover is going to be reused again. This solution right here will go into a storage container, and when I'm doing further testing, it comes right out of that storage container and slurries the next test. Okay? And so I go ahead and reuse the solution. In the real process, any pretty clean solution you can recover can go into the next batch, which is basically the plan. However, there's always a certain amount of solution that is going to wet the solids. And you can't eliminate that. You can reduce it down to about 8 or 10% by pressure filtration. Okay? But even then, you know, you got a 3-to-1 solution to solids ratio, and then 10% of it winds up in the solids. 3% of your gold goes away with the solids when you throw them away. Okay? The test we did previously seemed to indicate that the gold rapidly dropped to about 9 parts per million and then just flatlined. So if you had 9 parts per million in solution, and you had 25 kilograms, and you had a 3-to-1 solution ratio, you would have 0.67 grams in the solution. Yeah, 0.67 at 10 parts per million. Okay, 9 parts. And if you've got 25 kilograms of material times 25% wetting is 6.25 kilograms of solution times 9 milligrams per liter per kilogram. You're losing 0.06 grams of gold. Okay. Now, 0.06 times, I think it's about 100. Right. You're losing $9. Not going to kill you. The question is there an easy way to get that without throwing it away? It's not so much that we're going to go, wow, we're going to spend 2 hours to recover that $9. Nah, not going to happen. But if it's simple, we might very well. For example, if we decant the solution and then throw in a bit more resin, stir it up for 30 minutes, and then screen it out, it might be worthwhile. I don't know. That's my job. I got to do all this crap and then do the math. Okay. And that's, you're never going to get 100% of anything. The question is, how much are you losing? And is it worth it to go to the extra trouble to recover some of it? That's what I'm trying to figure out here. Unfortunately, it's not cooperating. Okay. Now, the copper wire test does seem to work pretty well, though. Okay. If you just take a clean copper wire and stick it in the leach solution at about 10 parts per million, you'll see a significant coating of gold on the wire about 30 to 60 minutes. At the normal leach concentrations, which would be about 30 or 40 parts per million, It's a lot faster than that. You can get a good, clean result in like 15 minutes. Okay. So that will also help let us know in the field, okay, have we, absorbed enough gold out of that batch to just decant and then throw away the solids? I don't know. Okay. We'll have to figure that out. My guess is it's probably going to be simplest just to decant the solution and throw away the solids after whatever methodology we use to uh, recover the gold. Okay. But if the pack bed columns work substantially better than resin and pulp, we'll probably go to run it for a while, take the solution, decant it, run it through the packed bed columns, throw resin into the pulp, run it for a little bit, screen it out, and then use that resin to go into the packed bed column later. So these are the kind of things I'm trying to figure out. And it would be nice if things like this would work conveniently. For example, if this is mostly silver, is it worthwhile to worry about? The question is how much gold. I didn't like seeing that much gold in that peak down here. This stuff here, that was a pretty good amount of gold, little one.
Yeah, for the size of the bead it was.
Yeah. So this stuff here has got significant gold in it. And I'm not that happy. The question is how much? And is it worth it? That other stuff. Does it just mean we throw a little extra resin in there and run it for a little longer? Maybe. Right now, I'm pretty sure that by the end of the week they'll have gold that they've recovered from solution using hydrogen peroxide digestion of the sulfides. Grind the bejesus out of it with the small ball mill. By the way, that small ball mill they got, which is like, I don't know, 16 inches in diameter and 2.5 feet high. It ground up that 25 kilograms that they're testing in an hour. It was just beat the crap. No grit left between your fingers. So it should be below 200 mesh. Okay. And that's also going to improve the speed of things. Right now, it's clear that with the material I have to test with and at the grind size it's currently occurring, you want to go to at least a 48-hour agitation leach to get good recoveries. Okay. Now, you grind that stuff up to 200 mesh minus, you might be able to cut that in half easily. I don't know. This is the kind of stuff we need to figure out. But that's basically what I've been doing. Because to say they're processing right now, and I'm not sure what the processing parameters should be. Okay. It's going to be 25 kilograms per batch. Now these are concentrates, honey bunny. They're sulfide concentrate. We got 2 hours of hydrogen peroxide digestion, 1 hour of regrind. Then it's going to go in a cement mixer for a couple of days. After that, we use resin and pulp to get it out. Now, yes, it's only the cons. My gut says there's a really good chance we can get the leach down to 24 hours. However, if you look at the realities of life, we work on a 24-hour time period. So let us say you came in on day one at the beginning of the shift, say 8 a.m., and digested for 2 hours. Then you ground for another hour. Then you ground the rest of the day. What's that? 3 hours here. That gives you 21 hours here. Another day, that's 24 hours. Get out here to where you get back at 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay? So how long does that take? These are the sort of things. Once you get there, come in first thing in the morning, and all you have to do is throw resin in there and keep it rolling. Then, by lunchtime, you got 4 to 6 hours on it, which be reasonable. Okay. So that's the sort of thing where it's probably going to take 3 days worth of effort to completely process a batch. Okay. And the other thing is, how many cement mixers do you have? Because most of this time, you got 3 hours isn't. So if you had 3 cement mixers, each one able to do, and we're probably going to be scaling it up to 50 kilogram batch. Okay, looks like the cement mixer should be big enough to do that. We're doing 25 for now because it's best when you're testing to take it easy. Don't push the limits. And so these will probably be 50 kilogram loads. Each kilogram will have about a tenth of a gram. So 50 times 0.1, 5 grams. And let's see. Right now, we're looking at about $160 a gram. 5 times, somewhere around $800 a batch. Okay. So $800 a batch, every batch give you enough money to buy another cement mixer. Now, the question is, though, in the long run, how much are they going to be able to produce per day? Right now, they've got a lot of stockpile. They got weeks and weeks and weeks of production where they've just stockpiled the sulfite. Okay. Yes, it does dissolve some base metals, Kodak. Rock Butcher had an XRF machine for a little bit to do a job, and we sent him some resin, and we definitely had a lot of other stuff in there. Base metal. There was copper. There was iron. What other base metals were there? Do you remember? I remember copper and iron were definitely there. Okay. Depending. And that is exactly the questions there are that we have to answer. At what point does it make sense to get bigger stuff? Okay. And so this is what my job is here, is to figure out what's the most economically beneficial way of going about it. Not just, when I say economically, I don't mean what's the lowest cost. It's what's the highest net profit. Yeah, the temperatures are generally going to be higher, and so the chemistry should work faster. Uh, okay, Justin, do you have my email address? You can always email me. I think Steve is going to type it in here. Because the PO box, well, there's an email address and a post office box. So Go ahead and do the email. hardrocku@outlook.com. That's pretty secure communication. It's also easy to send us samples to the post office box. But there's our email. If you forget it, you can just look at the beginning of any of my videos. It'll have that same thing there. And we can chat. Okay? But that's the simple way. It's nice to hear. But these are some of the parameters. I believe from the testing I've done, we've got lots of slop. We can get over half the gold pretty reliably. Okay. I'd like to get like 95% of the gold with minimal consumption costs. For example, if superfine grinding will work nearly as well as hydrogen peroxide at liberating the gold to where the Eco Goldex can get to it, I'm absolutely fine with that. Hydrogen peroxide is a cost. I remember how much it would cost. Yeah, I think like $1 a gallon. So today, okay, so they used up about $3 worth of hydrogen peroxide to treat this batch, which theoretically got $800. So not a big deal. No, I do not have the claims near Mexico at this point. Desert. We moved up here to Montana. It's a long way away. OxyClean. The testing I did showed that the hydrogen peroxide worked better than the OxyClean. Yes, honey bunny, I told you, but I don't know how I'm supposed to use that. I forgot. I know it's medicinal, but I'm not sure exactly what it was for. Was it used as like a tea? Was it to make a poultice? Could you explain that, please? But anyhow, the hydrogen peroxide down there for the same as the 12% hydrogen peroxide I'm getting here is vastly cheaper. Okay. So I'm using I'm using 12% here, and I suggested strongly that they dilute. They're getting 50% hydrogen peroxide down there, and so I suggested they dilute it 3-to-1 with water and get it down to 12%. So it's a lot safer to handle. Okay. A tea, huh? And what was what was it supposed to do as a tea, honey bunny? Got a real interesting smell to it. But what was the purpose in particular? Again, I forgot. Sometimes I forget what's her name's name over here. Yeah, Eva's wounds are pretty much healed at this point. Got a couple little spots where the skin still hasn't completely regenerated. Oh yeah, we got a Home Depot over here, Mr. Virtue. We've even got a Lowe's also. Okay, that's fine, honey bunny. Um, so let's say the Eco Goldex is not cheap either. I forget how much it costs. I think the resin, what's it running? $25 a pound? It's ridiculous. It's pretty darned expensive. And the Eco Goldex is like $5 to $10 a pound. And thank you, Justin. Justin's glad to hear you're getting better. And right now, the amount of Eco Goldex we're using is pretty high. However, if you recycle your solutions, anything that isn't consumed will tend to be just plain recycled, so no big deal. Didn't look real carefully. Uh, I know we're going to get lots of comments on this. Was it in? Was it in the bag? No, it's not pot. But anyhow, what? Uh, well, mercury doesn't work on dissolved gold. Okay, mercury works on metallic gold, and if you're dissolving the gold in a solution like cyanide, you have to get it out of the solution. You can't filter it out of a solution. So the resin will snatch it right out of the solution. Okay? Well, that makes it a little more challenging, honey bunny. It says there's something sparkly in here, little one. Somewhere. That's going to be quite the search, honey bunny. I don't see it. Zinc drops it. Correct, Travis. That's also, there it is. Oh, it is. We'll have to search for it later, honey bunny. Copper does too. Let me get a test bar. We'll get to it when we're not as busy right now, honey bunny. Don't know. Can you? I think it kind of like that. Can you see the coating on the bottom of that wire? That's gold precipitate, well, cemented out of solution, not precipitate. But anyhow, this is how we can tell how much, whether there's a substantial amount of gold in solution. Okay. Well, pouring it out on a plate will work. It's got to be relatively big then. That's a lot of stuff there. If you get the light on it right, it's not gray. I don't know if we can do this or not. It's awfully hard.
Yeah, you can't.
Get the light just right. It's pretty obvious. Not showing up well on the camera though. All right, honey bunny, we'll get it figured out later and show everyone on next live stream there. But anyhow, zinc will do kind of the same thing, but it doesn't leave a nice coating. I got some zinc strip from Brian, and it just doesn't show it quite as well. I thought it would because, yellow gold on silver colored zinc, but that doesn't seem to work. There's a lot of silver in here too. But yeah, it'll cement out on copper too, but zinc is a lot cheaper than copper, which is why they make pennies out of zinc nowadays. uh, anyhow, so that's basically where we're at right now. As I'm say, we should be able to get 50% recovery in our sleep, so to speak. I'd like to start out at like 80% recovery and eventually wind up somewhere like 95%. And then we'll be in pretty good shape. But say the boys down there, Jared's got a lot of stuff to do that he's not experienced doing. He's got all the stuff to do it. Yeah, that breakfast fried rice works really well, Justin. It's a nice stick to your ribs breakfast. And the nice thing is it's easy to make in the morning. If you've already got a bunch of bacon and rice cooked, it's real easy. Well, in terms of dissolving the gold, not much. In terms of resin and pulp, theoretically, absolutely. There's going to come some point where you don't have, say, the equilibrium just goes to heck, but should be able to get down to 3 parts per million without too much trouble. But it might take a couple iterations of putting the resin in first.
By the way, apparently there is raw sewage spilling.
Yeah, there's been for a week. Yeah.
From Jamie Raskins.
So, and again, that's one of the things where, the resin's $25 a pound. Do you want to waste it? Because right now it's a consumable. It should theoretically be recyclable, but at this point, we haven't been able to find a method to strip it and regenerate it. Okay. So if we could do that, then it becomes essentially a capital expenditure. Not a problem. That will increase the loading factor, definitely. Brian. But yeah, I did wage slave. But it's one of those things again, how much do you get and how much time and resin do you spend to get it? If it's real simple to extract the resin out of the pulp and throw the pulp back into the cement mixer, wouldn't take too much. If that process takes 45 minutes, well, how much? That becomes a question. Say, that's my job. Yes, the Goldex is best for very fine gold. Okay, the finer the gold, the more you want to dissolve it. The coarser the gold, the more you want to gravity separate it. We did testing out at the mill where we found that the Eco Goldex started to have problems at about 100 mesh gold. I mean, it wasn't dissolving it in any reasonable period of time. It took like a week or more to do that. Um, on the other hand, 100 mesh gold is easy to get by gravity separation. So as long as you can get mineral liberation by using the two, you should be able to get really, really good overall recoveries. The gravity works good on the coarse gold. The solution works really good on the fine gold, like 400 mesh minus. Okay, that'll dissolve really quick. But that's kind of thing. By using both methods, you can do well. Yeah, that can happen. That's where solutions come in handy. Desert. I say when the stuff from Montana B, 80% by weight of the gold was 1/4 the size of talcum powder. Okay, 6.8 microns. Okay, Justin. I got into mining in 1978. I had gotten married. Actually, first I got my girlfriend pregnant. Then I got married. And I needed money. And my mother was a teacher. And one of the other teachers at the school she was at, her son worked at the United Nuclear Church Rock uranium mine in Gallup, New Mexico. Okay. So I was assured that I should be able to get a job up there. They're always looking for good workers. So I hitched up a trailer, went up there, literally camped out 100 or 200 yards from the main gate. It's out in the country, And I'd walk over there every day and check to see if they had any openings or whatever. Actually, it doesn't do well on flotation, wage slave, because it's too small to stick to the bubbles. But anyhow, after a couple weeks, the secretaries there told me it's going to be at least another month before we're hiring anybody. You might want to see about getting a job in town. So I went to town, got a job working at a gas station. Okay. I worked there for about a month or so. Then went to work at the mine. And the mine had its own trailer park that my mother-in-law bought us a used trailer, like $500 or something, that we parked over there, and we lived there for about a year and a half. Then they had a big tailings pond break, and at the time, I was not actively working right then. My wife was at the mine at that point in time, but when they had the tailings pond break and they got all these, production problems, they just fired me. They laid me off indefinitely. So I went back to Yuma, and where my parents were, and there was an advertisement in the local paper that my stepfather noticed. He said, "Fear, this might be good for you." It said, I think it was driller blaster. Might have said driller heavy equipment operator. I'm not sure. But anyhow, wanted. So I applied, and in Yuma, Arizona, there's lots of farming. There's a reasonable amount of residential and some commercial construction, but there ain't a whole lot of hard rock drilling and blasting. So I got hired up out there. I was one of the first 4 people. Me, Ramiro, Art. I don't know if we had another guy at that. But anyhow, I was one of the first 3 or 4 people hired at the Chemgold Picacho mine. Now, you may not have heard of Chemgold, but you can probably notice the name of the company that they became, Glamis Gold. I was working for Glamis Gold before Glamis Gold was shit. Okay? So, right now they're a multi-billion-dollar company. But anyhow, I worked there. It was an open pit heap leach mine for 5 years. Learned a lot of stuff. Okay. Learned about blasting, learned about cyanide, learned about leaching, learned about heavy equipment operation, stuff like that. After about 5 years, they had a little change in the local management, and my manager was a complete and utter dick. He's currently the president of a big multinational company, which I won't mention, but anyhow, he was a dick. And so I wanted to move, and Goldfields, which is a big multi-billion-dollar company, was opening up a mine about 60 miles from Yuma called the Goldfields Mesquite Mine. And again, how many driller, blasters, heavy equipment operators you got in Imperial Valley, California? So I got hired up out there. And that was a bureaucracy, big multi-billion-dollar corporation. I didn't know how to keep my mouth shut well enough to get by there. So after about 5 years, I left there. And then for the next, actually, as long as I was working at ChemGold too, my brother and I were doing prospecting and stuff. And then I left Mesquite, and I was doing, I was salesperson and tech rep for a small dust control company in that area. And then that kind of faded out. And I mean, to be honest, I wasn't that good a salesman. And so they gave my thing to somebody else. Don't blame them. Okay. I'm a great tech rep, not the best salesman. Okay. Eva can attest to that. But anyhow, then I started doing kettle corn, and I'm one of the best kettle corn cooks on the planet. Not joking. I make really, really damn good kettle corn. And I can make it at about 75 to 200 pounds an hour to 100 pounds an hour. Okay. 1.5 to 2 50-pound sacks of popcorn seed per hour. Did that for like uh, and basically 20 years. Did prospecting and gold mining stuff in the part time. And then when Trump lost the 2020 election, we decided Southern Arizona was probably not going to be a good place. Made a deal to sell my company to one of my employees. Eva and I packed up and came up here with the camper and a 17-foot trailer, big box trailer. Used to be a box truck, but they turned it into a trailer. And so came up here, and we've been here ever since. And that's basically the history. I'm a smart person. I learn fairly quickly, and I've been dealing with gold mining since the 1980, actually. Okay. Yep. Some people are sales. Some people are not. Some people are good at technical, I won't call it sales, but call it tech support. And other people can just do the job as long as they're told this is what you do and this is how you do it. Like, then there's people who can't even do that. I don't have much patience with them. Hi, urban prospecting. So, say that's my history. And I've got years of heavy equipment operation, rock drilling, blasting, and stuff like that. I didn't work in the mill, but we had to build the leach pads for the mill, and we would help the mill out when they were like covering pad and stuff like that. And so I have a fair amount of basic knowledge about leaching and stuff. There we use cyanide leaching with carbon adsorption, and actually, a good salesman doesn't lie. He finds that someone who really needs the product he's selling, and then explains why it's going to be useful for him. Either if a good salesman can't sell without lying, they'll find another product to sell. You know? Sure, Desert. But anyhow, and I say I've been part-time prospecting and stuff ever since 1980. And I've done some prospecting in Mexico, had claims in southern Arizona, et cetera, et cetera. Show you a good salesman. Hmm. He wasn't bad, but he was more of a promoter than a real salesman too. Not nearly as bad as Trump. Um, thing. An actual sales. There's lots of times you got products. Could be a new tool or a gizmo or a whatever. It's really good. It really does the job well. And it sells itself once you show it. And so, hey, a good product. I mean, I agree. Sales can get pretty. No, I never did any prospecting up in Utah. Just, I mean, to get to Utah from where I was in Arizona was a 500-mile drive. I have done some prospecting up in the Kingman area with some people there, but that's about as close as I got to Utah. This right here is a target rich environment. Which song would that be, Mr. Virtue? Not a boy named Sue. Well, there's some people. I mean, like the guys that when we were going to get our new cell phones and stuff.
Yeah.
That T-Mobile, they were pretty good. They weren't hard pressure or anything. They knew what they could do, etc. I say it's sales. Somebody's got to sell the product, okay? And either every product on the planet is a terrible product, or some people can be pretty good salesmen. Now, there's some people who will sell anything to anybody, whether or not it's been useful. I've been everywhere. Oh, yeah, a little bit, not quite. Lauren's been a lot more places than I have. I'm serially boring. I'll do something boring here and then do something boring over there. Although the kettle corn, that had some interesting stuff there, and I had some really good times with, especially at the ballpark with Eva and stuff like that. But yeah, when it comes to sales, you know, it just don't sell a bad product, you know. And so that's my philosophy there. There's good products out there. I think my brother, he'd be great at um, testing fishing gear. Although his son's better than either of us. But my brother's a pretty good fisherman. Not the most fantastic fisherman you've ever seen or anything like that, but he's pretty good. His son is even better than him. But I have a fun life. Okay. Last year's been kind of sucky. Of course, I had a heart attack, then a life-threatening nosebleed. Eva had surgery last winter, and she's had the cancer thing this winter. It's been a rough year, but oh well. Thank Justin. No, that's one thing that I don't like. Um, Jeff Williams, he's got shtick. That is his shtick. Okay, that would just drive me crazy. I couldn't do that kind of high energy rambunctiousness or whatever. That just not me. Okay, I'm a teacher. I've got, as Gonzo said, my friend Gonzo, he said, I've got the teaching gene. I like to teach people. I like to learn, you know? And my videos, like this stuff right here, I'm just letting you watch over my shoulder, figuring you'll learn something useful somewhere. I'm doing a job. It's not the most exciting job. it's it's not the sort of thing that at this stage is like, ooh, how exciting, you know? Although we may have some fun this summer too.
Hmm.
Right now, it's a little cold. But long before summer.
He'll be right back. Got something to show you. Got new toys.
Got some stuff. Now, Greg wanted my MindLab 5000. So he traded me an Excalibur and a gold monster for it. We now got some good metal detectors. If it wasn't for the fact that the ground up by our claims is probably still frozen right now, we have gone up there and thank you, Justin. That's what I like to do. Yeah, you're gonna. Well, that Excalibur can work underwater, not just the coil. The whole thing is designed to work underwater. That's why it's got the earphones attached to it, watertight connections. Yeah, Rob Bob, I've switched to a 10 millimeter. Up here, range isn't the key. Down in southern Arizona, I mean, I could give me one ranging shot, and I'm gonna get it close enough to scare the fuck out of you. You know. Um, well, and that's why, Justin, it's accurate. With that thing, I could put a round within 6 feet of the target at 500 yards. It was funny. I was out there um, shooting with a friend of mine. We were shooting rifles at 340 yards, according to the rangefinder. And we were shooting at this bucket way over there. And then when we were all done shooting, I said, look, I got to give it a try. You know, you just watch through the scope and tell me where I hit. I'm figuring, okay, 340 yards, around 6 feet of drop. Pick something about 6 feet above it on the hillside there, about that bush, huh? So I got on the hood of the car and, cocked it. Boom! And he goes, 6 inches low, centered. Down there in southern Arizona, you got to worry about smugglers and things like that. So I wanted something that I could carry on my hip that can reach out and touch someone. Okay? And that's what it was. It's also pretty reliable, although you can get some dirt in it and it will prevent the I guess it's the pawl thing that locks the cylinder in place as it swings around, and keep that from functioning properly. On the other hand, now I wanted something that is a little more concealable because I figure things are getting interesting. So I want something a little more concealable, quicker to reload, and that was still big enough for a grizzly bear. So I got a 10 millimeter, a 1911 in 10 millimeter, which is equivalent of a 41 Magnum, you know, and with a grizzly bear, I got 9 rounds in the gun as opposed to 6. So, you know, it's workable. The other thing with it's a lot easier to fire a 1911 relatively rapidly than it is a 44 Magnum. With the 44 Magnum, you think I'd be pretty good to handle the trigger pull and stuff of the double action, or you got to hand cock it each time. Okay, so it seemed a reasonable gun for what I'm using now. Okay. Well, if you're dealing with people, I guess a 9 millimeter with the right bullets is good enough at this point. You don't get too much over penetration. And with the 44 Magnum, yeah, you're going to get over penetration. With the 10 millimeter firing hollow points, probably still got to worry about what's behind the target, you know? So, that's it. I'm not a big gun kind of guy where I'm like, ooh, I really like it. It's like I want accuracy and enough to do the job. The big revolver was accurate, you know? Yes, there is a problem with that, Justin. Well, see the desert. I've got a 10 millimeter 1911. It's like a 45, but I get one more bullet. It's got higher velocity. Okay. So it's actually a little bit more energetic than a 45, but it also gets better expansion than a 45 with the same bullet style, big hollow point. The 45, is just not doing the same velocity that the 10 is. So it'll get better expansion. I say the one extra round isn't bad either. They make double stacks now, but the grip sucks. And they just don't point naturally or anything like that. Plus, um, as far as I could, Mr. Virtue, I'm not sure exactly what's going on behind the scenes sometimes, but it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, it's it's just one of those things that if I had 14, 15 rounds or whatever, I'd tend to be bang, 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 like you see other people do. But I I want to aim, fire, aim, fire, aim, fire. Okay. I'd I'd really like to take some lessons from somebody who knows their crap, but I don't know anyone that wants to give them to me for free, and I can't afford good instruction on those things. Hell, just the amount of rounds I would run through, I can't afford. But when we're out in the field, I got the 10, Eva's got the bear spray. Between the two of us, we got it pretty well covered. Yeah. So that's about it. What's the market? It's just been kind of churning around there, haven't they, little one?
Mm.
No really big news that I can see in the markets.
Nope.
I
There's been another.
what that at?
Gold is at 49.6290 and silver is at 75.97.
Yeah. I say I think they're gonna bounce around here for a while and then they'll break out
That's
again.
what I told y'all a couple.
You know. They've got some pretty amazing high pressure air guns now, that have canisters and stuff. And they're pretty accurate and pretty powerful. I suspect it's going to go kinetic over there. I hope we've got a good plan. Hi, Shane. I just have no idea how well it's going to work out. And so I hope there's a good plan, but these things can have this nasty tendency to go sideways. We'll see. I can only do so much a week, Justin. it's one night a week. I mean, we do our whole Monday schedule around the live stream, and it's depending upon what was going on, it could be pretty easy to get lots of interesting stuff. This isn't really interesting, It's educational and such, but it's not real exciting, you know. So that's it. Plus, as I say, it's been a rough year. you know, we both had some serious health issues, so it's been difficult. But when you get some exciting stuff going on, um, yeah, it can be fun. We have a lot to talk about come Monday. Right now it's winter and I'm working in the lab. Excitement is not part of the thing, but that's why it's nice to have people ask questions on the live streams, because it can come up with some interesting subjects. So I say that's basically it. Does anyone have any questions or wondering what they missed or anything like that before we call it a night? Oh, I'm rather annoyed that I didn't get some clearer results here. Just annoying. So I can have to digest that, put that in. I'd like to try using a annealing cup and see what would happen. Do you think an annealing cup would work on that little debris that got in that thing?
I would make the same kind of bead, regular acid, or just amount that kind.
That's what I'm wondering. I say to me, you're welcome, Desert. You make a nice video. Um, an annealing cup is used to take the gold from a parted bead and get it into a single bead so you can then weigh it again. How much was it? 60,000. If the 60,000th bead was pure gold, it would be 36 milligrams or 0.036 grams. Okay?
But it wasn't pure gold.
Yeah.
I measured it because it was low detection.
Yeah. I use the optical thing because it's a lot easier to compare with precision. When you're trying to measure stuff on a scale, it at those low limits with the kind of scale I have,
We don't have
it's
a
it.
balance like assayers.
Yeah.
We don't have the precision equipment made.
Yeah. But I say this gave me precise comparison. I'm not sure what the absolute numbers are, but in order to do that, I'd have to know how much silver versus how much gold. And that's a lot more complicated. Okay? So that's basically the why. With a little microscope, I can get these within a thousandth of an inch. I can easily tell the difference between 060 and 062. you know. But that's why I use that, milligram equivalents, because that's just, yeah, you need a really good scale for that. Yeah,
You need a balance.
there's lots of tools that are fun when you have the money and the room, the place to put them, that where you can set it up and such. You're welcome, Jeff. Any other questions or anything at this point before we call it a night? I will have this video up tomorrow. I almost got it done today, but just didn't have enough time. We went and saw a movie. Was it Solo Mio? It was a pretty good romantic, somewhat of a comedy. I thought it was more of a romance than a comedy. How about you?
Yeah, I thought it was more romance than comedy.
Yeah. It's not a comedy about a romantic subject. It's a romantic subject that has a little bit of comedy here, there, and thither. But it was a good movie. It was a little unexpected in terms of it. It wasn't conventional at all. It had an unusual, not a horribly unusual plot, but it had a reasonably interesting plot. It wasn't a bunch of action or anything like that. The actors did a great job, I think, playing their character. And I thought it was an enjoyable movie. It really was. If you've got a hankering for a good romantic movie, or want to take your wife or girlfriend to something, that's a good one. Okay, I would recommend. Oh. Anyhow, well, where's the bus to Petaluma? I think it's probably north of the junction. Okay. It's called Solo Mio. SOLOMIO. 2 words. You know? Um, means only me.
Only mine.
Only mine? Okay. But anyhow, well done. Acting was great. It wasn't super conventional, but it wasn't ridiculous. You know? It wasn't one of those things where you go, oh, yeah, right, sure. you know? It's like, oh, well, there's some characters, but yeah, it works, you know? So go ahead and post, honey. But it was a good movie. Do I ever find myself thinking of the Omar? She does. If I ever have any question about the Roman Empire, she'll tell me. How much to go to the movies now? What did it cost?
Cost us $13 for the two of us with the senior discount.
$13 on the afternoon discount and stuff. How about Cody? That one's got me flummoxed there, David. Anyhow, everybody, see you next week. Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there.